get started, and before we start our meeting, we're going to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance and have a prayer. So if you'll join me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Remain standing. Father, we thank you for this time that we have together, and we thank you for so many students being here tonight and the chance that we have to say thanks for some good work that they've done. We pray that you would help the board make wise decisions tonight regarding the district, and that you would protect the campus in general, our staff, and our students every day. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
So thanks for being here. We'll officially call our meeting to order. And we're going to start. We've got so many Cobra Pride Awards tonight. So Ms. Curry, come up and let's do our first award.
Well, I nominated Mr. Kolash, if you'll come on up here, Mr. Kolash. For many of you that don't know him, you probably have seen him at many of our events. He is our volunteer coordinator. And we just appreciate his volunteer efforts all the time and at a lot of our events. And he's pretty partial to elementary. And so I just wanted him to know that I appreciate him coming to things like our music events and different concerts early. He actually came to the musical, opens the doors for our parents, pops popcorn, greets parents. So we just want to let you know that we really appreciate you.
Thank you.
And you have the award.
So our award says Cobra Pride Award is presented to Mike Kolash for outstanding volunteer.
And so we're going to get your picture.
No, doing the picture.
No. All right, let's get a picture.
All right, on three. 1, 2, 3. Very good.
Okay, Ms. Blevins, you are up. Let's do some band awards. Woohoo! Tell us about the band.
All right, first of all, good evening. Okay, so in December, our 7th, 8th, and 9th grade groups have got to go to Lake Hamilton and audition for All Region Band. And what All Region Band is basically where groups in the surrounding area come together into one central location, and they get to audition for a band. And the best in that area get to play in one of the two bands. And we had about 23 of our students get selected to be in one of those two bands and get to go to Lake Hamilton again and work with the director outside of the area and play some really awesome music. So we wanted to reward them for all of their hard work and let them know how proud we are of them. So I'm gonna get started. I have a really long list, so I'll get started. For first band awards, we have Kai Nobles.
Just so not awkwardly clapping here. Let's list all the names, and then we'll give them one great big round of applause.
That's awesome, thank you.
Okay.
All right, Cora Counts. Oh, they are?
Yes.
Okay, then I'm gonna do this then. Raul Diaz, is he here today? No. Where's it? Yeah, you can stay here. Yeah, I think yours was on top. Oh. Just smile. There you go.
Don't go back to your seat either, because we're going to take a picture in a minute. We're going to get a group picture.
Oh, group picture?
Let's get everybody up there.
Stay right there.
Stay right here, yeah.
You'll have to forgive me, this is my first Cobra Pride Award
You're doing great.
thing. Dylan Dixon. William Pete. CJ Hogue. Carson McCoy. Anthony Midkitt. Kai Nobles, there he is again. Erica Lawson. These are our ninth graders that have made it. We have Paul Combs. Lacey Curtis. Gregor McMurray. He's actually a ninth grader. Everybody. Macy Morgan. Several of our eighth graders couldn't make it today due to previous engagements. Clary Huron. Christian Alexander. Lexi Bellamy. Jay Caldwell. And Lauren Cox. Lauren Cox actually got alternate, but when she actually got called the day before the region clinic and said she got to play in the second band. So she's actually a second band member. You stand in front. Omar Diaz. Alyssa Forbes. Kyra Graves. And Gatlin Scully. Come on.
Yeah, let's make 2 rows here.
Do I need to get a picture or am I
Yes,
just-
you do.
Oh.
Take a step towards the center. You'll hit the pictures first. Step towards the center. You're in the back, looking before you hit. You're looking at.
All right, let's do this way just a little bit. Towards Dr. Keep on. More. There we go, right there. All right, on three. 1, 2, 3. Get one more. Very good.
Good job. Y'all.
Okay, so the parents of the all the other folks.
All right.
Oh, no.
These awards I get. Yeah, I'm a winner.
No,
Next, we're going to be doing our esports, but we're going to let everybody kind of trade in case there's any esports people out there that need to come in. We're going to let everybody rearrange.
So as everyone's kind of coming in, I'd like to take this opportunity to explain to the board that this is our first year to participate in esports, and Mr. Schrader has come forward and worked with me back last spring into the summer, and really has allowed us to extend additional programming for students after school. And so, Mr. Schrader, if you don't mind, can you give a little bit of a brief overview, and then let's recognize some students?
Yeah, I got some guys out there too.
Well, tell anybody out in the hall that's esports to come in.
So, esports is electronic sports, playing video games. Esports is projected to be $1 billion industry. Kid played Fortnite. Last year won $3 million in the Fortnite tournament. Over 1 billion people watched it, streaming it online live. That's more money than the guy that plays in the Masters tournament wins. Just for comparison, the Masters tournament only wins like 2.5 million. So pretty cool. And it was a 17-year-old kid. There are scholarships that are offered for students, just like you can get an athletic scholarship to play football, you can get one to play esports now. All of the colleges around here have an esports team. My sister, who is Dean of Students at a college in Wisconsin, actually is hiring an esports coach at her college right now, and they had international applicants. So it's something all over the world.
That's just crazy.
So we had 24 kids come out, and we ended with 22. So we were pretty solid. We actually had a team go to the postseason. We had a team almost go to the postseason. They were in a 5-way tie for our last spot, and they missed out like 15 points. But we also had 2 other teams. So we have 3 games that we played, Rocket League, Smite, and League of Legends. They're free-to-play games, 2 of them are, so anyone can play them. Anyone that has a computer can get on and play. We play anyone in the world. We played teams from Alabama. We had one league that was kind of a central league, and then we had some Arkansas teams. We play all Arkansas schools anywhere in Arkansas, and we never have to leave here. So it's really cool.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it was exciting. We had a good year, and it was really fun. I think we got some people that don't normally come together that got to come together and interact with each other. We want to keep it going for sure. Yeah, I'm really excited.
So if you had 24 or 22 on your team, what are you giving awards for tonight? Is this for
This is for being the first esports team.
Okay.
I think it was a big deal.
I didn't know if it was because
No.
y'all.
It's the first time we've done it. It's a co-ed team, so boys
Yeah.
and girls can play 9
And you
through
see
12.
some of your team members
Yeah,
there.
that's the League of Legends team. That's actually that was before our postseason match. So that was the team that made it to postseason. And a lot of those guys are in band, so they're doing something nice, so they weren't able to attend.
Okay.
So we do have some band members, and a lot of different people. We have band members, we have some basketball players, we have football players. So
Good.
we have a wide range of people. Does everyone
Got there, you want to call the names, and again, we'll just kind of hold all of our applause since there are a bunch of them.
Okay.
And let Mr. Campbell round them up if they're outside.
Esports, come inside, please.
They're out there playing.
Yeah, if they
They're
go,
ready.
they have to play, or they have to come for 1 practice a week, and we have 1 match a week, and some of them want to come 3 times a week to practice. So,
Yeah.
it's just however,
That's
whenever
awesome.
we can come. Oh, there's a lot more people out there than I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
yeah, y'all come in and y'all stand up here. He's gonna announce your name and give your COVID Pride Award, and we're gonna hold our applause till the very end after you've all been announced, okay?
Jaden, it's you.
I'm having a problem with connection.
Okay. Christian Botter. Cadence. And Leanne.
Mr. Schrader?
Yes.
Because we're streaming this live, announce their first and last
Okay.
name pretty loud, and everybody listening can hear.
Mana Dubberly, she's
Thank
not
you.
here. Joseph Florini. Armando Hernandez. Haley Evans, she is also in the band. Shondor Hampo. Hunter King. Nate King, who's in band too. I'm gonna go ahead and give you that. Hunter's brother. Alex Johnson. Anthony Midkiff. Austin Richardson Neighbors. Nathan Robinson. Jaden Smith. Derry Thurman. Oliver Walker. Otis Walker. Madison Wood. And Tristan Wright. So, like I said, we're super excited and we're ready for February because that's when we start our 2nd season. So there are 2 seasons, and so we're ready to start again. And I think most of these guys are coming back and they're ready for season 2 for sure.
Let's give it for him.
We're gonna make a picture.
Well, you may.
Kind of standing in front of me. Okay, you're looking at the guy in the black hat.
Get everybody, get out of
Yes, we're good. All right, on three. 1, 2, 3. We get one more. Very good.
Good job, guys.
They just spelled my name.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll be keeping up with that.
A couple final comments on that program. We're using our East Lab equipment, and we just pay a slight membership fee per participant. It's roughly $1,500 a semester to be able to have that program. Mr. Schrader's done an outstanding job supporting kids, and they practice during the week, play during the week, right after school.
That's awesome. I can't wait to hear about their second season. Mr. Janaski, are you coming to do the next set of awards?
Well, actually, Bruce is gonna come that way, so she can explain all these too as well.
Okay.
Are all our service learning kids in here?
Okay, let's make sure we've got everybody in here that needs to be in here. We do have some chairs up front if anybody needs a chair. Okay, Ms. Dukes, tell us what happened.
Okay. One of the most rewarding things I get to do is teach service learning, because I always have students who sign up because they want to serve their community and their school and their world. And these are the sweetest students that I get to end my day with every day. But this particular semester, I think we have had I've seen more projects accomplished and more success in one single semester than ever. So I have a lot of students to recognize, but these 4 groups combined made things that cost very little, but they put a lot of hard work into it, sold all these things, most of these things for $1 and raised $700. Recognized, there were several who wanted to help the Garland County Humane Society, and the 3 young ladies on the screen came to me with a very large idea. I was a little intimidated, but they wanted to do a fall festival during the school day for 7th and 8th grades, and they wanted to have games and activities, and they wanted to sell all of the products that each group had made. And I thought, well, it's a wonderful idea, but that's a huge task, and I didn't expect Mr. J to approve it, so when they came and told me he did, I was terrified. Within about 3 weeks, they put in a lot of hard work planning in that single day. The 7th and 8th graders bought so many things, and they raised over $350. It is all because of their idea. So I want to recognize Isabella Molinex, Caitlin Martinez, and Michelle. And I also want to call some others up here to stand next to them, because they also worked hard for the Garland County Humane Society, making bracelets and keychains. And I want to call up Lauren Cox, Camille Richardson, Summer Osborne, Brianna Graves, and then Kinsley Sills could not be here tonight. But together, this group raised $132 for the Humane Society, selling bracelets and keychains for $1 a piece that they created. So I'm so very proud of them. Sorry, there's someone. Brianna didn't make it. Okay. Lauren. Okay. If y'all want to stand together.
Yeah, y'all just stay up here and we'll get one big picture after we're done.
Okay, there's Lauren. All right, the next group I want to call up. This group is continuing their project this semester for the Call of Garland County, and they've done lots of things, and most of their things took place after school. They volunteered at football and basketball games to paint faces. They've made bracelets. They've asked permission to do 3-point shoot contests. They sold snow cones. They've volunteered on Saturdays to help with events for the Call, and their group right now has raised about $350 for the Call of Garland County. So I want to call up Lainey Mungle, she's actually at a ball game, so I'm gonna call it Scarlett Smedley, Aiden Carmeyer, and Faith Jones. And we also have Eden East involved, but she's at a ball game as well. I'm very proud of them. The next group is a group of boys and girls. They wanted to help the American Cancer Society. And the group of girls brought their own keychain making supplies, and they made a lot of keychains and sold those for $1. The boys had a different project in mind. They made items out of things that we normally throw away. They made bird feeders and toys, and those groups combined made $132 for the American Cancer Society. So that would be Peyton Richard, Emily Roark, Josie Driggers, John Carter, and Hawken Hawkinson. We have one more group, Peyton, Emily, John. Okay, we have one more group. Last but not least, these two young ladies brought in beads and string and made 132 bracelets, made $132 for the Jackson House. So that would be Chloe Clark and Ella Pilkington.
Well, we didn't want Ms. Dukes to feel like she was only directing traffic for taking care of our groups. Ms. Dukes also has written a grant for recycling plastics and paper in middle school, but this is also in recognition of time and devotion that she gives to our kids in the middle school, and has done a great job with our service project classes. And like she said, I mean, every year they come in with lots of ideas, and she's always coming, can you come and listen to these ideas? Can you come listen to these ideas? And these guys actually follow through beginning to end. So it takes a great leader to do that. So we wanted to recognize Ms. Dukes for her leadership.
Y'all get together and make 2 rows.
Squeeze everybody.
If you're short, step home. And step in. Step in.
I don't know that Hayden can get all of you in there, can you?
We got a lot of parent pictures for this one, so the parents can go ahead and get the pictures first. Everybody good? All right, everyone look this way. On 3, 1, 2, 3. Very good.
Thanks.
Those are some great awards tonight. I mean, some really good things going on at the school. That's impressive. So I hope everybody watching is seeing all the good things that are going on here. That is a bunch of stuff. Yeah, sure. Dr. Murphy?
Sure. I think we lost the audience for those who want to recognize tonight that definitely serve and go above and beyond, put in a lot of time and commitment. It's my privilege tonight. January is Board Member Recognition Month, and so it's my pleasure this evening to recognize the board, and so we're going to recognize each board member and then take a group photograph together. So Cindy, I'm glad you could make it to join us for board recognition. First, Corey George. Dana Greason, Cindy Herring, Brian Lambert, and Lloyd Little. Once again, thank you for your commitment and service to the students of our district. Thank you. Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Every recognition.
Get your award.
I've been watching this dude.
Oh, we have to hold it out?
Nope. Are we ready? 1, 2, 3. One more. Very good. Thank you.
We'll have
Thank you, Dr.
something, we'll
Murphy.
have something now put on the website. Which one? I look, so you're on it now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we can collectively say that we are all privileged to serve the school and the students and the staff here, and we appreciate that recognition. Okay, that being all the recognitions we were doing tonight, we're going to move into the regular items for our agenda. The first item are consent agenda items, which would be the minutes from last month, the bills from last month, and the board training hours. The board training hours is just one of those state requirements that have to be presented as part of an annual meeting. So the link will show you how many training hours you have, and it's just a must-do thing. So if there are no questions, we will consider all these items approved by consent. And next, we will have any comments by the Board of Education. Does anybody have anything, comments or questions tonight? If not, we'll move to the superintendent's update. First, Dr. Murphy is going to have our financial review.
You've had an opportunity to review the finances. We're not quite midway through the year as far as payroll is concerned. Not any questions associated with that. I've got the items here that I would want to make everyone aware of. First and foremost, I think there's going to be a big push and an emphasis and a why piece to the 2020 census. And I think we all need to actively promote the census from a public education perspective as well as a community perspective, road funding, the list goes on and on. We need to account for the people in our area, and in doing so, it gives us a seat at the table for distribution of funding. So be fully aware that I think households will be receiving the actual document that you can mail back roughly the last part of March. And I've been in communication with other groups. There's a committee group in the Hot Springs Village, the Fountain Lake community, but we want to do everything we can to promote the 2020 census as it moves forward. If you wanted to learn more information about it prior to receiving that information, you can just Google the 2020 census, and there's a full website that kind of gives you the timelines and breakdown of everything that's occurring there. But it's extremely important for educational funding. And with that, are there any questions at this point, or have you been hearing any conversations around the census? A couple other items to report on is I've provided a volunteer sheet. We've had quite a bit of conversation around answering the call, volunteers assisting in our schools. We've got a pretty rich history of volunteers in our FACES program, but we've extended that, and we've got roughly 20 new volunteers that have signed up, and we're working in partnership with the Arkansas Community Foundation, and so we want to continue to promote that. And you can contact the Community Foundation if individuals are interested in volunteering in our schools, and that makes you eligible to volunteer at Fountain Lake, Jesseville, or Mountain Pine. So be aware of that. And of course, you can always contact our volunteer coordinator directly. He was recognized here tonight, Mike Kolash. I did visit, you remember back in the month of November, we had some conversations around, had a 1-hour work session on finances, talking about the debt structure, and so you had a chance to kind of look at that. Rates are favorable at this point in terms of being lower And so I'm going to have a meeting next week to determine if refinancing and keeping the same term but accessing a new rate structure would be advantageous to the school. It's anticipated that we could incur upwards of $500,000 savings and interest through the life of our notes if we give that consideration. So I'm going to probably bring something back for you to at least look at in the month of February, but I'll be meeting with Beardsley and Associates, I think 21st. I've got a meeting scheduled with them. And then finally, you may have heard we've been meeting with each division of the classified staff, kind of streamlining our job descriptions, looking at contract links, direct reports, who they report to, and addressing any questions they may have. And so our goal would be by the time we get to the February board meeting, if we can meet with all those divisions and have some discussions, then we can start bringing through PPC some recommendations to the board for consideration in February or March. So it kind of brings you up to speed on a few things that are going on in the district. Any questions for me? Okay, thank you.
All right. Our Director of Instructional Services, Mr. Campbell, do you have anything to?
Just briefly, I wanted to let you know that the State Board of Education met last week and approved the high school's charter renewal for another 5 years. So
Okay.
that was a unanimous approval by the State Board. So
Very good.
happy with that.
Very good. Director of Sports Services, Hayden, do you have anything for us this month?
I don't have anything really to add. I'll just make note that, we did meet the other night, did a walkthrough for the awning of the K-1, looked at the gym as well. We did talk about our bids, so I have to go back out. I just reached out to the last winning bid today,
Okay.
and kind of walk through that process of where we're at. He's going to come out for another visit to walk the whole phase again, and we'll have to go back out for bid. That's a 2-week process, so that's kind of where we're at. And February time frame, I'm hoping we'll have at least some good numbers we can look at, and that's kind of just where we're at this point.
Okay.
And we're looking to narrow the linear, it's not going to be the same distance, right?
Correct.
And for those, I think Brian and Corey were not here, but we were talking about doing that awning on the K-1 building in 2 phases. Doing the part in front of the new entrance that wraps around to the old entrance, that little L there, and leaving the side along the road for a phase 2. Because we did have some questions regarding all the different pieces that would have to go into that.
What was, if you phase it, what's the cost?
Well,
Did we know that? or-
we're not aware of, what we originally presented at $97,000 was the full wrap of the building. And so at this point in time, part of this is that'll be where we load and unload once we get the new roadway in place, the stoplight goes in, and so that'll begin to take shape, but it won't take shape for another 1.5 years probably before we really start seeing what that looks like. So, I think initially just covering the front of the facility, making it feasible for us to load our special needs buses there and have access to get them undercover as needed is kind of, I think, the first approach. And then as we start looking at the volume and usage through time, we can always take that secondary piece down the length of the building for additional loading and unloading of buses, cars, etc.
And there were just questions about, there was going to be some maybe additional cost of moving the air conditioning units
Right.
up on the roof and putting the sidewalk in, just different things. So we're kind of looking at it as a phase 1, phase 2 thing.
Anything else, Hayden?
All I have. Thank you.
Okay, Robin, do we have anybody signed up for public comment? Okay. Tracy?
Thank you for having me aboard.
Uh-huh.
Murphy.
Well, I'd like,
Ms.
before you
Randy
get,
putting the,
whoops, I'm sorry, before you get started, let me remind you that, that you cannot talk about specific people.
correct.
We don't want to talk about personnel, but we will hear you in terms of general comments.
Right.
And then the board will take under advisement what you have to comment about.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Appreciate that. One thing, my years of being a volunteer here at a coaching level for over 20 years, I had several parents contact me come to that, we just sort of played it off as the 7th grade is the lost year for football around here. It's just always been that way. It's the lost year. And it comes to my findings and through other parents that I've spoke with that we just don't have personnel. And we're thin at that level. And so I did some research and I spoke with other schools in our conference. At our level, so to speak. And they do have more coaches than we have. And they also have more volunteers than we have that can get qualified as volunteers. And I don't know if that's something that comes from internal or if that's something that has to go through the coaching staff or through the athletic director. But I just think it would behoove us to look into that because we are lacking in kids that are coming up, and then they lose a lack of interest. And we are, at this level, are losing kids, which we have already seen from last year. And from other parents, and I've got some here now, I think that would just Dean to look into it, not only in the future, but right now, because I think it's imperative that we have some sort of help in that general direction, because as it is, the other schools which I'm comparing to, and I'll Bauxite, Arkadelphia, Malvern, our general area, they do have other coaches. And from talking to the coaches, they work relentless. They're up there all the time. And there's several of them that are, you know how many hours they put in. And then I just, they need some help. And I thought it was something we could look into. I don't know if it's in the books or not or whatever, but it just seems like we could get some sort of help or something, whether it's qualifying some parents that, through a system like they do over there, whether it's where they take testing or something or pass a qualification test. Of course, we want somebody that's knowledgeable in that area, but they do have qualified parents that are committing their time to helping out, because the 7th grade in junior high, which we have several parents up here that are concerned, they know it's a forgotten year, and we're losing a lot of kids at that level. And from last year's experience, I won't further that anymore, we all know about that. We lost a lot of kids, and we're continuing to lose a lot of kids. And the kids that I coached, the 7th grade last year, and like I said, over 23 years coaching people here. I think especially because not just football, but it's something that they need to get an interest in, something. And football's their endeavor, that we need to look into it, because our numbers are declining. That's no secret here. We all know that. And football, the Fountain Lake used to be something that I can look at the number of faces here, and we all played. We're all here. And that we're losing. And that is a big interest, not only with our school, but with our community here. And I talk to a few people every day, whether they listen to me or not, that's one thing. But I am finding reciprocal feelings that we are losing numbers because of that. And if we can look into that, I don't know if the funds are doable or not, but I think if that's something we could look into, would behoove us to not only encompass the kids, but would better our school and our community, get more people involved. And that's what we want after all. We want community involvement. That's what's going to help us in the long run, whether it's trying to get something passed, but community effort. We want our parents involved. And that's what's and there's one area that we're lacking right now. We used to have a ton of volunteers that were qualified. They went through a series of tests and stuff and marked through the athletic director and other coaches. But that's something we desperately have to look into, because I know that maybe if it is funding, that we're lacking right now. We don't have as many coaches up there as the other schools. And if we want to be competitive, we want to get to the next level, or we just want more kids here, we've got to commit to this. And whether if it's lack of funding, that's one thing, but then let's get some parents up here that will go through the process and get qualified. Because if you look on the programs from Bauxite, and I can bring it up to your attention, I can show forth the effort from their programs, they've got parents that volunteer. And they are an asset to their community, they're an asset to the football team, they're an asset to these kids. It's not just about football. It's about teaching these kids about the next level and then committing to something and going through with it. And, whether it's band or football or cheerleading or whatever, we have to commit to these kids. And if that's what they want to get into, then we have to be a part of that. We have to give them the effort from us, because they can't do it by themselves.
Yes.
And that's all I'm looking forward to is somebody you know, whether it's through you guys or whatever, if we don't have the funds, that's one thing, but let's look into some sort of research, look into some program where we can get some volunteers that are qualified, and I say strictly qualified, to be a part of this process to help out, because we are lacking, and it's hurting our system, and I don't mean to be redundant, but as we saw last year.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm gonna say. I think we should look into this because we're losing some kids through that. And if that's their interest, we have to step up as leaders and as the ones that are running this school. And whether it's East program or Van or whatever, we should have them have the opportunity to fulfill what they want to succeed in.
Yes, absolutely.
And I won't take any more of your time, but
Thank you
thank you for your time. I appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Thank you, board. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Murray.
Hey, I will say that, you know, we've had this conversation several times. I mean, whether it's me and Coach Davis or Dr. Murphy, but we see your issue. But you also look across, just in general, everybody's declining because no one wants to go out there and work hard. I mean, it's a hard, I mean, you gotta put forth the work. So we gotta find kids that wanna work hard. I mean, it's not, it's hard to just go up there and, you know, not wanna work hard. It takes a lot to play football. I mean, but we do hear you.
Yeah.
And
No,
we
I played 21
appreciate
years, I
that.
know a little bit.
Yeah.
And I have I'm one of the few parents that have had 2 kids come through this program and get scholarships to play football. Okay? I don't know if there's very many others. And I've got another one that's playing right now and of course, even when I played 100 years ago, it still said student athletes, so I am all about academics. Trust me, if you've ever known my boys, you know what their academic levels are. And that's what we stress, but it also is a way for them to, just like you were saying, but we have to have the opportunity for them. We have to have the parents there or somebody there to say, yeah, let's go, come on. And as it is right now, the 7th grade, I think it's up there for 30 minutes. 30 minutes. And I know we've got the facility, and I know all about the band on Tuesday night. Trust me, I did this for 22 years up there. We have to share a facility and everything, but we still have places that we can do it. And if there's qualified parents that can get up there and help, that some of us may have time during the day. I don't mind coming up there, you know, if you're duly qualified. That's
Well,
what
now,
we stress that.
and I hear what you're saying. You're saying
So,
we need to
We need to be able
enlist
to, if
some
those kids
volunteers.
want it, we need to be there for them.
And the board,
Yeah,
we appreciate.
I'll expand on Corey. I agree with what he said, but I know all y'all in here with this idea, and if it helps, I mean, I don't think anybody,
Boxside
That's not
does it,
agreement.
Arkadelphia does it, Malvern does, every
7th grade
Nashville does
lost
it. It's the lost year. We
in more
make-
than football.
we make puns about it now, but it's serious. Those kids coming up, last year, let's take for instance, last year, our senior class. How many of those kids played Pee Wee here? Class had 27 in the 6th grade. How many seniors did we have last year? How many are we losing? Our junior year, think of it that way. Our junior year, every year we have 27 to 30 kids in the Pee Wee program and then through. And of course, they're gonna go to other programs, I understand, and that's great. But still, you look at the other programs, and I'll go with this, look at Boxside, 72 kids on there. They're and they have one of the biggest graduating classes in our conference. Dr. Murphy gave me some of the records, okay, and I looked it all up, we went through that extensively. Malvern, all right, 68 kids.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
And I hear what you're saying, and it is important.
Okay.
I don't know how much influence the board has over that, but certainly, you're being heard by the superintendent, you're being heard by the athletic director, and those who can really take that under advisement and see.
And I might have put the cart in front of the horse being the personnel is item 7.
No,
Okay?
you're doing.
But I will
you're
stress
fine.
that to whoever
Yes.
is in item 7
You're
also.
good.
Whoever is in item 7, I'm here to help them,
Yes.
whatever I can do.
Very good.
And I'm not
Thank
saying any
you.
names, as you suggested. But whoever's in item 7,
Okay.
we're here to help. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your comment. Okay, thank you for that. Is there anybody else that was on public comment? Okay. So let's move into our new business.
Did anybody else not know we had a sign-in sheet?
Oh,
Okay. I don't know. Some people didn't know.
Oh, okay.
Sign-in sheet.
good idea. We can actually announce that next time. Under this new business, Corey, do you have a motion for us?
Yes. I do. Motion to adopt the 2020 six-year facility plan, 2020 master plan narrative, district facilities, 2020 six-year facility plan resolution.
Okay. So let's open that up for discussion. I think this is something we have to provide to the state every so often.
Yes.
Is that correct?
So what we have, of course, is a state requirement to submit defines as maintenance to represent those different projects at the state level. This does not commit us to completing all of those projects. It just places us, I think, an accountability measure for schools across the state to look at long-term planning. Due to infrastructure, roads, probably the biggest thing I inherited coming into this role was coordinating and helping facilitate a master facility planning process. And so this is not our complete document for anyone looking at it. Online you can find roughly 135 pages that reviews all of our facilities, kind of looks at different strategies on dealing with parking, dealing with roadways. This is an outcome of number one, a framework that the state holds for enrollment. And so in these enrollment trends, you can kind of see our enrollment trend data has actually reversed. Since my first year in this position, the state provided us a document my first year that equals to 17 students. Approximately 2 years later, that enrollment shifted and settled back at, if you recall, Dana, we were at 1425 one year and bumped closer to 1440. Then we received information Hayden and I did. Each year we get a projection. That following year it landed around 1425. We made a contact to the state, wanted to talk about live birth data, and tried to get a better understanding for why they were pulling out of our cohort groups. They're actually reducing our class size between like second grade and senior high. If you look statistically at the cohort data now, the kindergarten grade levels are just being projected just short of 100, and the overall enrollment projection over the next 10 years is roughly below 1,300. So, you know, we've had a lot of discussion. This does not take into consideration any new developments, road infrastructure. It's purely live birth data that they hold currently and what they're looking at statistically at the state level. So we are required to present that locally. So in the, I believe it's item A is the enrollment data, isn't it, Hayden?
Yes, it is.
And so if you kind of scroll to the base of that, you can kind of see the actual enrollment data through a period of, it's a 10-year projection that they provide locally to each district. This does tie back into partnership money. We've had the discussion here based on our high assessment, based on our student enrollment. We do not qualify for state facility money. If we did a project, we would qualify for 0.5% of state facility money partnership in that regard. So we are really a non-qualifying event for state partnership, but we're still required to submit the data. We're still required to accept the enrollment projections from Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. As you can kind of see there, they've kind of projected kindergartens to roughly be in that 95 range, moving forward between 90 and 96. This year we do have a low kindergarten enrollment in relationship to some years that we've had in the past. I think just short of 79. So I wanted everyone to be able to kind of see that. The board kind of frames its direction based around facility needs, traffic flow patterns, safety in general, and programming. Depending on the type of programming that we try to provide to the student population, that impacts the type of facilities that we need. We've expanded and are up and running with our welding program, and in doing and investing in that regard, it's really limited the amount of space that we have in our shop. So depending on our programming that we choose to allow our students to participate in, what we choose to fund, there's always a facilities component that goes with that. In a summary, we listed several facility projects. Robin, if you go back, I just want to highlight some of the things that we did place before the state that we've had discussion in the boardroom about. And for anyone in the community, we've had concerns about long-term commitments to cafeteria seating. And so we have looked at maybe some exterior seating to kind of expand the space for our cafeteria, still having the same serving lines. So we looked at that as a possibility to help serve cafeteria seating. We know that we are probably going to go out to bid this summer for a high school roof replacement, going back with a metal roof in that regard. Other projects that you have approved, the intercom grade updates so that we can have exterior horns that communicate at the field house and other related areas on our campus that currently, if an intercom announcement is, or an all call is made, those areas may or may not fully hear those things. We have a section of the gymnasium bleachers where the motor no longer works, and so we have to manually pull those in and out and then affix them to the floor because they no longer work correctly, so we're looking at a replacement of those. Our track, we've had this